Warning. Listening to this show may result in increased levels of inspiration, motivation, and innovation. Side effects can include the immediate urge to take massive action to build a better business and life for yourself and others. You've been warned. Welcome to Influencers Radio with your host, Jack Mize.
And welcome back to another episode of Influencers Radio. Well, today is a real treat for me because my guest is just an incredibly interesting woman with just so much rich background and has some really, really interesting and powerful points of view and perspective on a lot of things that have a real impact on people's lives and the people that come to know her and interact with her. So it's definitely something that you want to pay a close attention to, because my guest today is Carole Isenberg. She is the founder of the Mother Lode Experience, where she is committed to helping people connect to their authentic self through the exploration of the matrilineal line, especially the impact of our mothers, grandmothers, right? These are our first powerful role models on the choices we make, our health, and lifelong decisions. And the power of this awareness is an opportunity to break through and ignite the next chapter of our lives. Carole, welcome to Influencers Radio.
Hi, Jack. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, I am thrilled to have you here because, I'll give you a forewarning. I probably be all over the place because you have such an interesting background. You've done so many things. It's almost like you've lived multiple lives compared to a lot of people. And we'll certainly dig into that. But the first thing that I want to ask you to kick this off is if you can explain and go deeper into what the Mother Lode Experience is and really what your mission is with this project.
Okay, I'll do just that. Well, the Mother Lode Experience was actually inspired by my own life. I had a challenging relationship with my mother and really had a chance to look at that. And I found that over time, my friends would talk about their relationships with their mothers, and I've always been a student of human behavior. It's fascinated me. And I realized that our mothers, and just not our mothers, the whole ancestral line has a huge impact on who we become as adults. So the Mother Lode is an ability to take some time and really look at the impact. What are the behaviors that we have that work? What are the behaviors that we have that don't work? What are the family themes that come down? And when we can look at it, we can begin to make some choices. Do we want to continue that way? Do we want to make changes? And in the process of the Mother Lode Experience, there are many tools, many, exercises, so that we can actually unfold and really take a deeper look within, so that we can have a next step in our life that's much more satisfying, that's much more accomplished for what we want to be in this world.
Well, and I think, one of the things that you are extremely talented at and very perceptive in is storytelling. Because you said that we learn through storytelling. And I think that's just I think it's an undebatable truth that everybody tells at least themselves stories. Pretty much your whole background, how you justify things in your life is from you telling yourself stories. And I need to, I think, preface this before we get into this, that you're not just a storyteller. You're actually an Emmy-nominated producer of TV and film, and I think that's probably where a lot of your storytelling passion comes from. So, can you talk about that, the impact of storytelling and how it affects us?
Well, our life, everybody has a story, and we all have a story, and families have a story, and storytelling has been something that has been fascinated to me, but I mean, I see that all around me. I mean, my initial connection to storytelling actually came from reading, and that evolved into wanting to make films. All the films that I was involved with, The Color Purple, The Women of Brewster Place, This Is My Life, they were actually all stories about families. And if you look at them, you can look at themes that went on in those stories. And I felt so fortunate. Often when we would do a film, we would have a kind of a lesson plan that would go along with it, so people could really look at what were the issues, what were the themes that were involved, what were the lessons involved about the way to be in the culture. And when I began to put the Mother Lode Experience together, I wanted it to be a fully integrative experience, that it wasn't my lecturing to the group, that it was really the group energy coming together because we learn from each other. So in every Mother Lode beginning session, the question is always, what's the story of your relationship with your mother? What's the family story that's come down? And also, what's the story of your relationship to yourself? And when you begin to look at those pieces, you begin to learn so much. And in the setting, in the group settings, when you listen to people's stories, you recognize that even though the external aspects of the story are different, there's something on an internal level that we're all the same, because we're all wanting to be seen. We're all wanting to be met. We're wanting to be loved. We have that desire, and you can begin to hear in other people's telling how much similarity there is about what our wants are. And then you can begin to look at your story and see if you want to retell that, because you in your life, you're the storyteller, not the story. So if you look at the theme of your life and you're not happy about the way that story is, you have it in your power to begin to rewrite that. But in order to rewrite that, you have to understand what are the influences. What is it that motivates you? What are your beliefs that you may have to change in order to be able to tell a story that's more satisfying as you move into the next chapter of your life?
Well, yeah, and that's what's fascinating to me, because listening to your perspective, philosophy on this, it really empowers people to to realize that they are the author of their life, right? It's not something that's happening to them. It's kind of it's something that they have some control to edit. And I know that probably you're more well known for the films like the Color Purple or the Women of Brewster Place series. But one of my favorite films that you were involved in was This Is My Life. Now, looking back in retrospect, that one was very much centered around that mother relationship, right? And how much that impacts, and also how people can rewrite that. So can you talk a little bit about, or maybe even a case study or an example of how someone can do that to rewrite that? Because I'm sure there has to be some foundation, and just like any writing, some research to do that. And I guess it would start with someone actually acknowledging that they do have the power to rewrite that. So what would that look like if you were going to sit down and start to take on that kind of task?
Well, first of all, when we begin the process, we always say, well, what's the story of your relationship with your mother? So we usually do it, as an oral, experience. And of course, an oral experience is very, very, it's in all kinds of traditions. But there's something about taking that and writing it down. So usually we go around and we discuss what that is. But then you have the chance to actually sit down and write what that story is. Not what your mother is, but what's the story? Is it a story of support? Is it a story of, of anger? Is it a story of is there mental health issues? All those different pieces. And then you begin to think about, well, what is it? What do you want for your life? I think that people just kind of live. It's a chance to take a moment and really think about, well, how do you want your life to be? What do you want it to look like? And it's very important to write a goal down. Like, what would your goal be in the way that you're going to be in your life? And I want to just clarify something. One of the positive results of this could be that your relationship with your mother will change. But that's not necessarily the final goal. The goal of this is always your relationship with yourself. Because one of the things we always say that this is an inside job, so that the more that you are able to connect to yourself and your own needs and wants, then you can change, then things can change on the outside. And the other piece that's important is repetition. If you can say that you want something different, but just getting an idea about it is not going to change it. It really changes in the repetition. So we encourage people to journal. And if you have a goal, write that goal down and look at that goal on a daily basis. Maybe your goal is that you want to be able to, maybe one of your goals is that you want to have a more loving relationship with your mother. And maybe you want to have a more loving, connected relationship with the people in your lives, because you feel as though it's not where you want to be. Maybe what you want is a better connection to your health. Maybe you want to have a better sex life. That's another piece of it. Maybe you feel that you want to have different ways that you eat. So we want to write down all of those pieces, and actually kind of, as you're doing that, you look at the cards that have a goal on it. You actually rewrite the story through writing for yourself. And you can, when we work with people either in 6-month or year blocks, because it takes time to make changes. People say that they want to change, but change is not a comfortable thing. So even though you want to get from maybe being in difficult relationships, either with your mother or the people in your lives or whatever the relationship is, and you want to get to a place where you have more peace, more comfortable in your own skin, more connected to that experience way that you are able to tell the truth in a way that you could speak authentically about who you are. It takes time to do that. You have to give yourself time to do that, so that when you look where you start and where you are after 6 months or a year, that you've really been able to evolve. This is really ultimately about transforming. Not that you're going to be this. I always feel that the core of who you are is a whole person. And what you want to do is you want to access that. It's not that you are broken, but you want to be able to access. I always say that there are gems inside. And this is a process that allows you to really look at the gems that you have inside.
So it's not really about changing who you are, because I think a lot of people may get head down a path of, I need to change who I am. But if I'm hearing you correctly, it's more about not changing who you are, but becoming the better or the best version of yourself.
Perfect. It's an evolving piece, because when we say ignite the next chapter, well, we have all these chapters, right? And so all these chapters that have led you to this point, that's part of your journey. I always say, the journey is the destination. It's not like there's some journey like all the way out there, but each day is a day in the process of working on yourself. If you've made a commitment to really being this best version of the best vision of yourself, it's a daily process to connect to, and there's a joyousness in it, because one of the things that you're able to do is you see pieces of yourself that you didn't even realize. The level of creativity that is able to become apparent. There are things that you can see about yourself that you actually didn't realize before. And so, it's a way that you can connect your own dots. So it isn't as though you didn't have that before, but it's a way of accessing that. That's the most important thing, that's an access point, and so that you can do the next chapter and the next chapter and the next chapter.
And I think that, the way you use that analogy of the chapters, because a chapter is, I guess, an opportunity to change the direction of the story arc. I guess it's when you make that delineation, if things haven't been going the way that you want them to, creating that next chapter is a chance to not necessarily start over, but it's a starting place of change. Does it seem like it's easier to kind of get someone's head wrapped around that it's not, this isn't about necessarily starting over, but let's start the next chapter and see where this direction's going to go now?
Exactly. And I want to make this clear. This is not about, dissing mother. This is not about dissing mother, because as adults, we are responsible for who we are. Once we become adults, we're responsible. Understanding the influences of why we become that way, that's a very important thing to take a moment. But once we have a recognition of that, it is our responsibility to really make choices, make changes. But sometimes we need a help. I see myself as a guide, as a coach, to really help someone look at the whole picture. I think that we all need help. I think that especially in the culture as it is now, there's so many things that come at us. I always say that when I think of myself in terms of archetypical terms, is I'm a teacher. I was many years ago, I was a teacher when I graduated college, and that's my greatest joy. I've been a student of human behavior forever, and then I've become a teacher, and my greatest joy is really using this information that I've used to really, for myself, share it with people so that I can really support them in their own growth. That's really the joy of my life, to do that. And when people have worked with me, I've seen people come and make incredible strides in all aspects of their lives, go from, and this also not only impacts your relationship possibly with your mother, but impacts your relationship with your own children, because you learn to have, better tools and better techniques. Like it or not, often the things that we don't like, that we've inherited in our own relationships, in our family, we don't like it, but we are so kind of programmed in a way that we do the same thing with our own children. So this is also an opportunity to make big family changes in very positive directions.
Well, you bring up some really interesting points. One, when you're talking about this isn't about dissing your mother, I think one of the things that is very clear from your philosophy on this is one, I think we have to accept that we're all people and we're all flawed, but understanding the good decisions, the bad decisions, the good things that you've taken on from your mother, the bad things that you may have taken on your mother, they are all, for the most part, come from a place of love and wanting to do the best for you. And then I guess, like you said, as an adult, it's up to you to make the decisions on how you're going to allow those to impact your life. But on the flip side that you brought up with your own children, you're a mother yourself. Now, when your kids were growing up, were you cognizant of the impact that this had, or how, really powerful this was? Or is it something that you look back on and recognize, or did you have this understanding to be able to use it in purposeful ways as your kids were growing up?
Oh my God, that's a great question. Well, I had my children pretty young, so when you're a young mother, it doesn't come with a guidebook. I don't think that I really understood. I feel that we evolved together. I remember when they were little, I'd say, this is the first time around my being a mother. But obviously, over time, since I was a student of human behavior, I began to read things, about good parenting skills, and I tried to, to bring that into their lives. I have two sons, and I have 5 grandchildren. My son said something interesting. They always said, Ma, you're always real. And I think that was an important thing. I mean, warts and all, I was definitely real. And you brought up a point, I think that's true. I think that people do the best they can do. Maybe we're not totally happy, but I think that people really do the best they can do. That's why I think it's very important in our relationship with our, with our mothers. At some point, if you didn't like it, you have to forgive them. And the forgiveness is actually about yourself. You have to just let go and kind of move on. And the other thing I think is really important is I think you have to have a sense of humor. It's a balance between you have to take life seriously, but not so seriously. And I think with all of it, I think we have to have a sense of humor about ourselves. I mean, you said that we're all flawed. It's part of the human condition. And I think that probably it's also what makes us more interesting. So I feel that we have to, we have to be able to have, a little bit of humor about ourselves, because if you're so dead serious, it just becomes, it's not fun. And I do also feel that one of the things that we want to bring to the party is enjoyment and fun, and to bring, a little lightness. There's another thing my children said to me. I was always interested in things like yoga and meditation, and one of the things that they begged me, they wanted me to be, they said this to me once. They said, can't you be a regular mom? Meaning, can't you be a regular mom, kid? Can't we have sugared cereal? And my mom, can't we have Coke? And it was, I always thought about this. And actually, when we were doing This Is My Life, and I think we talked about it. It was actually the first film that Nora Ephron directed. And we were, talking about, all of us that were working on it were mothers. And I actually told them that line that my kids said, can't you be a regular mom? And so they included it. It's actually one of the lines in the movie. And I said, when the kids said, can't you be a regular mom? I said, you'll appreciate me later on. But then I said later on, maybe you didn't even understand how much later on it would be. But I feel that, and I actually, even now, my boys are in their late 40s and early 50s, and I actually have asked them, what kind of mother did you think I was? Because I think that I wanted to know more about what they felt. And I also feel that I can't do anything about the past that they liked or didn't like, but I can do about the future. I always say this, the verdict is never, ever in for any of us. So that if you want to wake up and be more conscious, there's always a next step. There's always repair that you can do, repair for yourself and repair for the people around you.
I guess a term that pops out to me when I think about you and listen to you is the importance of awareness. And it was kind of vague to me. But as I listen to you speak, I think that awareness is, it's important to be aware of your past, but not necessarily being a slave to your past. But I think, is it that being aware of your past gives you the information or the foundation to be able to allow you to change or to make that transformation?
Yes, you completely hit it on the head. Sometimes people use the past as an excuse for what's not working. Exactly, yes. And right, it's like and they are in that story over and over again. Well, it's information. It really is. It's important information. I think that we need to know that. But the most important thing, and not to gloss over it, because that's another thing. Not to act as though it didn't exist, but it really becomes a balance. You become almost like a detective, almost like maybe an anthropologist of your own life, so that you use that information. And you understand some of the things, you understand more of the things about you. But it has more to do about, how do you want to move forward? Like, what do you want your life to be about? That's why I'm going back to the idea of being the storyteller, not the story. You can deepen the tracks and keep on bemoaning everything that happened, or you can say, okay, I understand that. And I can also take a look at what are the things, what are the core beliefs? We all develop a set of core beliefs. Certainly when we're babies, we so want, we want all of our parents' attention. We want them to take care of us all the time. And when we're, very young, we're completely open. Everything that's said around us, we take in, all of those things. And there are beliefs that we adopt that have nothing to do with us, but we're listening to what comes into us. And so we end up doing things over and over again because we're kind of in rote behavior with it, but it's not serving us anymore. That's why it's really important to take a moment and just look at, what are my core beliefs? What do I believe that maybe is not true for me anymore, and yet in some way it's running me? What situations do you end up finding yourself in that look different at the beginning, and yet we end up in the same place? Relationships that you're not happy with, it looks different, but it's the same person. It's a job situation, it's the same situation. So if you find yourself in situations where it looks different to begin with, but it ends up being the same, you have to really look at, what is the core belief that brings you into that situation, and what do you need to do to change that? Have you ever had that experience in your own life?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's your ability to go deeper than this, that top layer, I think is incredibly powerful. And just that saying, being the storyteller, not the story, that puts a lot of it into perspective. With your background in movies, TV, film, and storytelling, how powerful do you think that the media is in inspiring change and new ideas in our personal lives?
Well, look at the media now. I think the media is almost too powerful. But many years ago, just to address that, I was involved with a group. It was called the National Council for Families and Television, and the work of it really looked at the impact of television on families. And one of the examples they gave, now I know this really dates me, but many, many years ago, Henry Winkler played a character called the Fonz on television. And Fonzie was he was a tough guy, but he did a lot of the right things. And they found that if the Fonzie wore seatbelts, if the Fonzie went to the dentist, if the Fonzie did any number of things, they found that people, responded, and they would do that. They actually tested that out. And I think that this is true on so many levels, because, and there are so many more outlets now, and you look at all the cable stations, if you look at the movies that are on the cable stations, they have so much depth to them. There's a wide variety. There are obviously, comedies and, action movies, but they have so much depth to them. And most of them are really about relationships. And they always say that the Bible, Shakespeare, and the Greeks, they kind of never go out of style, because all of those, they're all stories. We really learn in metaphor. All the stories in the Bible are metaphor, and really, really wonderful movies about metaphor. Spielberg and George Lucas, looked at, the depth of character study. And if you look at the characters in their films, they represent certain archetypes, whether it's the hero or the mother or the lover. But we learn in those things, and we begin to kind of develop a consciousness about that. And often we want to bring it back to ourselves, because if you look at what are the higher places that you want to be for yourself, where you learn about ethics, you learn about kindness, you learn about empathy, or even you learn about, learning how to make money. So many ways that we learn about ourselves are really through films, because it transports us. Film transports us into kind of another reality. And then we can come back from that reality and see if we want to use those messages in our own lives.
Yeah, well, it really is. And I think if, the people have the good, the bad opinions. And like you said, there's too much, maybe, impact on our lives right now. But yeah, I guess when you think about that media, and if you don't just put media, we're not talking just social media or films, but yeah, books, literature, poetry, music.
Exactly. And I want to say another thing, Jack. I feel that, we come to grow. We don't come into life, full blown. We, even as human beings, as a species, we are the ones that are the most vulnerable for the longest period of time. And so, don't forget, a child, I don't know, until they're, look how many years a child is quite vulnerable. And so we are getting all these messages, but the journey through life is, and the positive journey through life is one of really learning. So we aren't meant to come in to know everything. What we are meant to do is learn to grow as we move forward. Now, obviously, some people learn, more or less than others, but the opportunity is always there for growth. And that's the positive aspect that's the positive aspect that I think that Mother Lode has the opportunity to do. It has the opportunity to really help people up-level their lives in an incredible way.
Well, yeah, and I think, one of the things that is just really a big part of what you do, and the example you set is, it's about being both that student and teacher. You empower people to take on both those roles. And I think that's probably where we get the most fulfillment out of life, is when we do take advantage of fulfilling both of those roles as student or teacher. And I think so many people probably are a little bit heavy on one or the other. But to be able to take that on, and I think when you are a parent, and also a child, myself, to look at the father side of it, I come from a long line of fathers. It seems like all the men in my family were fathers.
I think so. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, see, it all runs in the family, doesn't it? Just like you come from a long line of mothers, I would imagine. But you almost need to take on that role of both student and teacher, and realize that both, maybe your teacher, as far as your mother, grandmother, they were flawed or at least fallible, or I guess to put it in layman's terms, cut them some slack, or it's like you say, let it go, or what was the term, to move on, become aware of it, but it's time to not hang on to that, right? To use that as an excuse,
yes,
in your life, but also understand that to teach your kids not to use you as an excuse, and that there's a point when they have to kind of take the reins themselves, and to be aware of that. And I think that's what you do is, you, I guess, through asking the questions, allow people to examine their lives and examine how they feel, examine who they want to be. And it's not just about, receiving, but it's also about giving, and just really being able to lay out that story of your life. And it just is a tremendous, tremendous thing that you do. It just really is remarkable. I have to ask you, how can people find out more about Carole Isenberg and the Mother Lode Experience?
Well, they can join. We have a Facebook group, the Mother Lode Experience, We'd love to people to join. I'm on Facebook. You know what? I do master classes and I do teaching. I'm on Instagram also. You can go on the Mother Lode Experience. We have a website also. So you know what? There's always new information that's coming up, and I work with people in groups. We have groups that I work with. I work with people individually also. Because of COVID, I had to move everything digitally. I don't know if we're ever going to go back and be in person, but everything that I do is online. And I just wanted to say something else that kind of just addressed what we're talking about with mothers. One of the things that we always encourage people to do is, regardless of what the relationship is, acknowledge mother for the gift of life. Because the truth of the matter is, no matter what the relationship was, you wouldn't be here for her. And I find that often when people just say that, it changes things. There's something about the acknowledgement of that just changes something in the dynamic that goes on between a parent and a child. But you know what? I'm thrilled to work with people, and we have lots of, small classes coming up. I mean, this has been a very kind of a creative time for Mother Lode, and, presenting the information in lots of new ways. So it's always interesting to participate.
Well, I think, it makes me think of, I think it was Socrates that said the unexamined life is not worth living. And I have to say that you really give people a path to create a life that's worth living, because you really show people, I think, ultimately how to examine their lives. And that, to me, that's just an incredibly powerful thing and a remarkable thing to be able to do. So I want to thank you for coming on and sharing that.
Well, thank you. And I'm so glad that I love that phrase, the examined life. Exactly. Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Folks, I encourage you to definitely check out Carole Isenberg, definitely check out the Mother Lode Experience. And I know that we've condensed a lot of information and thoughts into a short time here, but I'm sure you get a sense of what can unfold just by being around Carole and listening to her and taking advantage of her experiences and as a student of life. And it just really is a powerful thing. So definitely check it out. Until next time on Influencers Radio, remember, you are the only real game changer.
You've been listening to Influencers Radio. To get all past shows and updates on future shows, visit influencersradio.com today.